So, just off on a walk from the barn around the various lanes. I'm doing this as a test of the Pocket 3 just prior to taking delivery of the Lunar Pocket Ultra, just to see whether or not it's as good as it looks to be on paper and on specification. You never know. So anyway, that's what we're doing. A quick view back at the barn, and I'm just going to try now to do the zoom on this, which is supposedly lossless zoom up to 2 times. The new camera will do a lossless zoom up to 6 times. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that is indeed the case. Church gates, and there's Stokes Climsland Church in the distance. Now the next test is whether or not, when it's on 2 times zoom, whether or not it will actually take a usable macro shot. Let's put it that way. Osmo Pocket 3 has really good stabilization in the X and Y axes. Of course, there's none in the Z axes, which is why you get this up and down movement as you walk. I mean, the first company that can solve that problem is going to make a lot of money, in my opinion. I think some of it can be done in software, but the problem is that the cropping that would need to take place for the degree of movement is probably too great. We're now walking through the graveyard. How lovely is that? Now, I can't remember the specification for the Pocket 3 as to how close you can get, but it's on 2 times zoom, and I'm going to go into these flowers and just see how close we can get before they start to go out of focus. That's about 5 centimeters away, and to me it looks out of focus now. We're a little bit further back, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of focus and separation we get. Now, one of the things that Stoke Climsland is known for is, for such a relatively small village of maybe, I don't know, 150, 200 inhabitants, something like that, it's got 66 miles of country lanes and roads. That's quite a lot. And one of the neat things about these pocket cameras is their ability to track objects, and of course that includes faces, in this case my face. And it being such a small camera, in total the weight is about, I don't know, 175, 200 grams. It's nothing very much anyway. It means that you can put it in your pocket and literally it's available for use within seconds after you pull it out. Now the Insta 360 Lunar, which is a new camera that I've bought, has a slightly longer startup time. Now it's going to be interesting to see whether the difference in startup time is A, noticeable, and B, restrictive. I suspect I won't tell the difference, but we'll see how that goes. It should be here in the next few days anyway, and then I will test it out. Most of the reviews online, I say most of the reviews online, are very complimentary about it, but then again, they're sponsored, i.e. Insta360 has sent them a free piece of equipment that they review, and I think as a prize for reviewing it, they end up keeping the Insta360. But of course you have to question the validity of the review and its you know, how realistic it is in truth and whether there's any bias. Which is why the only way of doing it, in all honesty, and it's the same with all cameras, is to do it yourself. Well, they say that summer is just around the corner. Well, I don't think it's going to be around the corner in Stoke Clemsland, to be absolutely honest. At the present moment in time, it looks pretty cloudy and dull. Good lighting, actually, for wildlife, because that's just the sort of light that you want. It's not harsh as it is in full sunlight, but it would be nice if it was a little bit warmer. But there we are. Now, along at the end of this road, they're building a new chicken farm. Well, intensive farming, I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be free range and that the sheds are just there to keep the chickens away from Mr. Fox, but we'll have to see. Now, this is the new chicken building, if I can call it that. It looks as if it's going to be quite big. They've been at it, clearing the land and doing the building for some time now, so it must be quite close to being ready. One of the problems that's been noted is the potential smell. But in this day and age, they've got to be careful because there's so many legal requirements when it comes to smells. Here we have yet another attempt at a macro going in. I don't know, I'm about 10 centimetres away now. It'll be interesting to see how this looks relative to the Insta 360 Luna. Now this is another shot, this time using active track. Now active track follows whatever you've set as the point of interest. In this case, it's the gate and the field beyond. And hopefully it will active track that until it can no longer see it. Now coming back towards the village. Again, we haven't been very far. I think this walk is about a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles. I do it regularly, just if I've been sitting down for long periods, just go out and do this walk. It doesn't take too long. It gets the old joints moving. Remember the old adage? Lotion is motion. As I say, the stabilisation is excellent on the X and Y axes. If only there was some way that the Z axis could be compensated for as well. I mean, you can do the ninja walk, which means bending the knees, heel to toe, which is what I'm doing now, which limits the amount of movement up and down that you get. But it's a pain in the butt to keep doing it, I'll tell you. Now this is close macro shots without the zoom, just to see how this performs on some, well, rather pathetic looking poppies, I'm afraid to say. But I'm sure the colour rendition will be great. Now the Pocket 3, which I'm using here, is shooting in 4K and 50 frames per second. In reality, that gives you a really good picture quality, but the new Luna Ultra, which I'm getting, will shoot in 8K. We're now just passing the Stoke Clemsland School, which is reckoned to be a very, very good school and which encourages a lot of people to seek housing in Stoke Clemsland. Hence the prices go up, the locals get upset, they build more supposedly houses that are affordable. It depends what you consider affordable. And you can just see in the distance there that we're almost back at Stoke Clemsland Church. This is the Millennium Stone, with a stone that was picked from Kit Hill and then placed here, as you can see. Now, this is the Stoke Clemsland Green, where there's lots of children's swings, etc., etc. But they've also recently installed some adult exercise equipment as well, which is pretty good. A little bit like they used to have all down the promenades in Spain, probably made by the same company. On the right hand side here is the village hall. Directly in front of us we come into the Stoke Clemsland post office, which, believe it or not, I think is the oldest post office in Cornwall. It's currently going to close down because they can't buy a buyer for it. Directly in front of us now is the Stoke Clemsland Social Club. They have various activities, and of course at the moment showing each and every England football game. Of course, everywhere now you've got the ubiquitous life-saving defibrillator. Now here's a bit of interesting information. On our right hand side we're coming up to probably the biggest house in Stoke Clemsland. I think it's got something like 10 bathrooms and 30 rooms or whatever, and it's the place that has changed dramatically over the years. At the turn of the century it was used by Mrs. Simpson and Edward as a secret getaway. Then it became the vicarage for the church, and now it's owned by a ex-investment banker from London. And now we're almost back at Owl's Barn. So as you can see, not a tremendously long walk, but an interesting one nevertheless. When the weather gets a little bit better, no doubt we'll put some flowers in the various baskets, hanging baskets and plant pots that are around the place. But at the minute, it's been difficult. We've had a few roses out, but not very much. But nevertheless, there we are, the end of our walk. So here today I've received my Insta 360 Lunar and set it up, and hopefully we'll have a reasonable comparison with the Pocket 3. It's not going to be a completely fair comparison because I'm using the Insta 3 Mic Pro, so that should mean that the audio is somewhat better. I've set the zoom up on one of the custom buttons, and it looks as if that's the best way to do it, rather than using the zoom switch, which I'll probably use for slow zooms from one level to another, but not for general zooms like this, for example. Anyway, let's start the walk. Another reason it's not going to be a fair comparison is because it's an absolutely glorious day today. It's a little windy, but the sun's out, so we've got absolutely excellent lighting conditions. So things like close-ups and just general light is going to be better than the test that I did on the Pocket 3. Anyway, let's go in here and just check out the macro. It seems to be pretty good. That's at 2 times. This is going to be 3 times, and that's the 6 times lossless zoom. Now, zoom is interesting on the Insta 360, and one thing to bear in mind is the fact that the lens changes at the 3 times optical zoom from the general lens, the normal lens, to the second lens, which is the zoom lens, as does the aperture. So that's something to remember. If you go from, say, a zoom of 1 to 1.5, you will use the primary lens, and it's essentially a crop. So if you want the best quality, you need to change to the zoom lens and then use it at a magnification or a zoom level of 3. Of course, from 3 to 6 is the same sort of issue, which is that it is a crop. So here we are coming up to Stoke Climsland Church again, and one other thing which is different, which will make it not a true real comparison, is that I'm shooting this in the new Insta 360 iLog and then correcting it with post-production in DaVinci Resolve. Now, I'm just going to go inside the church, if it's open, just to sort of see what it's like in low light and how that changes. Okay, so this is the low light within the church. Now I'm just going to change that from using the current settings to using what they call pure video. Now this is pure video, which means that there should be better detail in the shadows and better low light. Of course, it's not doing iLog in pure video. But nevertheless, looking at the screen, which I know is no real indication, it looks as if it's pretty good. Here we are once more walking through the graveyard. I think I'd rather be a visitor than a homeowner, but there you are. So this is a similar shot to that I did with the Pocket 3, and we'll just come up to have a look at doing the macro shot with the main lens, not the zoom lens. This is relatively close, so it'll be interesting to see what the result is. Shots are taken with the zoom lens, i.e. I'm on magnification 3. Obviously I could go for 6, but that would just be a crop, whereas this is, well, or at least should be, a better quality than doing that. Now we're walking up one of the many lanes in Stoke Climsland just to see what it's like on blogging. I've got deep tracking on, so it should be following my face quite closely, and still using the Insta 360 Mic Pro. So here we are going down the lane, looking at the screen, and of course that gives you no real indication, but it does to me look as if the stabilization is slightly better than on the Pocket 3. Why that would be, I've no idea. It could be, thinking about it, that because the camera is a little heavier, that helps, because of course the heavier the camera often leads to better stabilized shots. Just another close-up of the flower, just to see how it looks when we get back. Now there's one thing I didn't mention, which I should have. I do suffer from gas. No, that's not wind. It's called gear acquisition syndrome. Can't help myself. If I see something new that sort of tickles my interest, I am likely to go out and do whatever I can to buy it. Of course, sometimes the price is too high. For example, I'd really love the 150 to 600 Olympus lens to use with my OM1, but that's £6,500, just a little bit too much. Coming down the lane to join the main road, well, I say main road, it's still a lane, that leads to the school and the post office. Now here I'm using deep tracking again, just to follow this insect. Be interesting to see how this turns out and what the focus is like and the light. But still relatively straightforward to do. I do like the idea of double pressing the joystick to track on what the camera sees as an obvious subject. Much easier than clicking the screen and disturbing everything. Now here I'm going to try a zoom using the rocker switch. This zoom is set to slow, and I've seen on YouTube that some people have noticed a colour shift as it moves from one lens to the other. So this one will be interesting to see whether I see a colour shift and whether or not it looks okay. Now that's at 12 times zoom. Well, it looks okay, but now there's no ways I'm going to be able to tell whether it really is okay until I put it on the computer and colour correct, just a standard colour correction. But I have to say that zoom does look to be very smooth. Now, if you're getting the impression that I like this camera, you'd be absolutely right. I think it is brilliant. It's certainly, in my opinion, a step up from the Osmo Pocket 3. It's not a huge difference, but then again I wouldn't expect it to be. But I think the colour rendition and everything about this is good. And people that said initially that because Insta360 didn't have the experience of pocket cameras, it wouldn't match up to the Osmo Pocket series. But I've had other other Insta360 cameras, so they've had a fair bit of experience, so I can't see why that would be the case. As far as I'm concerned, I think this is without doubt an unbelievably excellent little camera, and I'll be using this a lot. That's not to say I won't be using it for using the Osmo Pocket 3, but I'll certainly be using this. Now you remember from last time the quite awful close-ups we had of the poppies, which weren't in a good state of repair, but here we are again. Quite busy this road today. However, we'll just take a shot of these lupins. Again, we're coming up to the Millennium Stone, which was brought from Kit Hill. Wonder if you can see the writing on it. This stone from Kit Hill has been placed here by Stoke Climsland parishioners to commemorate the year 2000. Do you remember that? When everything was going to go wrong in the year 2000, and it never did. Now, one downside I found of the Lunar Ultra is this. that sometimes if you set the screen brightness on auto, it takes the screen so dark that you can't see it. So I believe you should set the screen manually, the screen brightness manually. Don't put it on auto. That's just me. The other thing which I've noticed is something that I would like. I would like to be able to lock the roll axis from, I would like to lock it using one of the custom buttons. But unfortunately, at the moment, I can't find a way of doing that. So if anyone can tell me how to do it, that would be great. If not, that's something that I think that Insta360 should certainly look at. Once again, the Stoke Climsland post office. And here we are, just going past the social club. And if you remember, the ever-present life-saving defibrillator. Well, let's hope we never use that. Another thing that's worth mentioning is at the moment I do not have a micro SD card in, so this has all been recorded on the internal memory. Now, so far, all of the shots that I've taken walking have all been done at a normal walking speed and just normal walking. So we're now coming back to Owl's Barn. So what I'm going to do now is attempt to do the ninja walk. So to see whether that makes any difference at all to the stability. As I said in the test that I was doing of the Osmo Pocket 3, the first person that can give a much better result with respect to the up and down movements, i.e. the Z-axis movement, will be making a lot of money, because everyone likes to see a nice smooth video. What do I mean by smooth video? Well, I'm now going to stop and I'm going to move the camera forward. Now hopefully that will be smooth, and a lot smoother, or noticeably smoother, than if you're walking. Once again, let's have another macro. Set it to 3 this time. I changed my mind at the last minute and set it to 6, which, if you remember, is the zoom lens, 3 times optical zoom and 3 times lossless zoom. But I reckon that's going to be a very nice macro.